Well, did you see President Biden's interview on 60 Minutes on Sunday night? No, you probably didn't because you had more important things to do, like clean the lint out of the lint trap of your dryer. I mean, okay, it's Biden, it's 60 Minutes. You know, um, we've got an administration that worries about um, fossil fuel. What they really ought to do is worry about the fossil they've got in charge of the country and the fossil media outlets that he chooses to try to, quote, get his message out on. So even though the White House is having to walk back most of what Joe Biden said in that interview, nonetheless, excerpts of it have gotten out because of the things that he said. Basically like, hey, if China invades Taiwan, we're going to war with China. In other words, like, hey, let's make a declaration of a world war with China. So they had to walk all of that back. But there was this other little caveat where he's walking through the auto show in Detroit, and Biden says, look, the pandemic is over. Really, because earlier in the interview, when he was asked why he had such tanking poll numbers, he basically said that the pandemic has made people insane, and they're crazy, and they've got they've got mental problems as a result of the pandemic. I kid you not. Go back and watch that. It's just, I mean, I shouldn't laugh that this actually came out of the mouth of the president, because had this been Donald Trump that insinuated the reason people were upset with him is because they were scared of COVID, and it had so beat down on the psyche of the American people, they needed someone to blame, so they're blaming him. If Trump had said anything even remotely like that, the the lying legacy corporate corrupt mainstream media would have had a premature ejaculation and climaxed, and would have absolutely been fit to be tied that he said something like that. Joe Biden says it, and we just skip right along. So yeah, he really said that people have sagging poll number, or he has sagging poll numbers because people are so beat down from the pandemic. But then he said the good news is the pandemic is over. Really? Well, good. Now that it's over, why is Congress not convening to immediately rescind your COVID pandemic emergency powers? Huh? Huh? Why do you still have these powers? Why are you still able to just circumvent due process and legislative process, and just, if you feel like, but you haven't done any of that lately because it's an election year and we're getting closer and closer to those midterms, and you know that this has absolutely devastated you personally and the Democratic Party. All of the lockdowns, the mandates, the overreaction, and now that more and more information comes out about love potion number 9. But that didn't stop Dr. Fauci from springing into action. Of course, the media couldn't resist. Once Biden declared there is no more pandemic, what does Dr. Fauci have to say? Come, we must see the wizard. I mean, it's like the Wicked Witch of the West, is just skywritten across the land of Oz, surrender Dorothy, we must see the wizard. And all of the Ozonians head for the wizard's throne room, and they're turned away at the door. The wizard has no time for you today. So we must see Fauci. What will Fauci say about the pandemic being over? And of course, Fauci did what he was going to do. Well, the pandemic is not over. Now, he has to be careful. He's got to walk lightly here. If this had been Trump, of course, he would have come right. This is ridiculous and this is reckless on the part of the president to have said something like this, and it will no doubt endanger millions of lives. He can't say that because he needs Joe. The only thing keeping him from being fully investigated, even when the Democrats lose the midterms and lose control of Congress, the only thing saving lifeline that Anthony Fauci has is Joe Biden. Because I promise you, if Rand Paul and the Republicans get their way, and Rand Paul literally, he wants Fauci in jail. He wants Fauci in jail over the fact that he's got all the emails that took place when the pandemic got out. And it's so obvious that a big CYA was an operation, that Fauci had funded this, was in this up to his eyeballs, was lying. Rand Paul wants Fauci in jail. This is not just a fundraising stunt for him. He really sees this man as a facilitator and funded the creation of this, and it has affected across our planet hundreds of millions of lives needlessly. And now that Rand Paul, senses that the Republicans are going to get control, he wants this guy. You do know that if it ever really comes to that, Biden's going to pardon him. So Fauci can't come out and completely say that President Biden is going to, millions of lives are in danger by him recklessly saying. He can't bite the hand that he needs to protect him. He'd like to, but he can't. Now, in reality, what the president actually said was right. Look around. Most people are maskless. I went into a store today and I was told by the proprietor I had to put a mask on. I said, no. Well, then you can't do business here. I said, fine. So I didn't. I just, this is ridiculous. With the exception of a few extreme individuals, it is what it is now. I don't wear the hat anymore. It's just not going to happen at this point. The American people are tired of this. They've moved on from it. Biden understands that. It really was tanking the Democratic Party all through early 2022 and into the spring, and that was when the big repeals began, and you could unmask on airplanes, and that's when Fauci finally announced his retirement. But see, Fauci, there's two things with him. One, he is such a narcissistic maniac. He is such this egomaniacal little mad scientist from every B horror movie you've ever seen. He can't give up the limelight. He can't give up the spotlight. He likes being seen as this godlike figure who's there to save us all, despite the fact it's his fault. So you knew as soon as Biden said what he said on Sunday night that on Monday morning, the TV talk shows would want to talk to St. Fauci. And lo and behold, Fauci and the president disagree. Oh, really? But they're not playing, the media's even careful. He's carefully walking back what the president said in an overzealous moment. There's another reason Fauci doesn't want it to be over. If it's really over, he's really in trouble. And he knows that. I told you before, and I have been saying this for 2 years. And because of his involvement, the reason that he has flipped and flopped on every position possible is initially he didn't want you to be afraid or concerned because he was worried the fear and concern, people would want to know, how did this happen? And he would be in the crosshairs. When he realized that was not what was happening, and they were looking to him to save them, well, then that rock star egomaniac for the science nerd finally kicked into gear. I mean, come on, this is a guy that when he was in high school ran the classroom movie projector. That was Tony Fauci. And he had never been invited to sit at the cool kids table. Now all of a sudden, everybody, even if they only have 25 subscribers and 10 views a day, who's got a podcast, had Tony Fauci on. As long as it was going to be positive and for him, he's been on everything ad nauseum. We call that a media whore. That's the term for it. I don't say crude things just for the shock value of it. I know some of you were upset what I said earlier in this commentary. But sometimes you have to grab people's attention. The Apostle Paul did say, it's better to say 10 words people understand than 10,000 they don't have a clue what you're saying when you're done. And I'm telling you, Lying Legacy Corporate Corrupt Media would have gone into orgasmic euphoria had Donald Trump actually declared pandemic's over before Fauci did, and they would have absolutely run with that the president is trying to kill you. Joe Biden says it. Well, Dr. Fauci is brought out to clarify what the president actually meant. There's a lot we can look at and begin to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we've still got a ways to go yet. And I need more money from the royalties. And once it's finally settled, people will begin to turn their attention to where, what, when, how, and why. And he can't really come out and push back at the president because he's going to need the president for that pardon. Because Rand Paul, Jim Jordan, some others on Capitol Hill, they ain't playing. They want there to be, and they know the American people want there to be, someone has to be held accountable for all of this. And by the way, President Biden isn't really going to start war with China. You know that, right? First of all, he owes them too much. They don't call him Beijing Biden for nothing. But it is interesting. If it gets pushed in that direction and he begins to rattle the war sabers a little bit, it'll be amazing how quickly even President Biden comes out and says, you know, that lab leak theory is not a theory. It really happened. So Tony Fauci also knows he's got to be careful that he's already been taken to the woodshed once this year. I told you in the very beginning of 2022, there was a private meeting behind closed doors, and he was told, hey, we're getting killed in the polling. We're getting killed heading into these midterms. This is one of the boat anchor issues that's killing us. Dr. Fauci, it has got to go away. And like a good little boy, he was rolling it back, but he couldn't stand the loss of attention. He couldn't stand not being the rock star. And so he'd keep coming back out and coming back out and coming back out. And now I think finally, in a total Freudian slip and just even maybe a little bit of Joe Biden really was in a really fully lucid, functional, cognitive moment there, said what he said to put the final dagger into Fauci. Because now we'll find out, who does the left like more, Fauci or Biden? This could get interesting. Whatever it is, it's kind of fun to watch. It's sad we're all going through this, but nonetheless, you got to find a laugh where you can find one.